Today is we'll read Srila Prabhupada's Sannyasa taking day. We'll read some things. Srila Prabhupada's Sannyasa Smriti. Interaction with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur during Srila Prabhupada's Grahastha days. Excerpts from our Srila Prabhupada, a friend to all, compiled by Moola Prakriti Devi Dasi. Recollections by Sripada Narayanananda Dasa Babaji Maharaj, a godbrother of Srila Prabhupada. The following recollection was recorded in an interview on March 9, 1999. Since that time, Sripada Nayanananda Dasa Maharaja has left this world. Okay, not Narayan, Nayanananda Dasa Maharaj. Okay, here it goes. Srila Nayanananda Das Babaji Maharaj recollects. The last year that our Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, organized and performed Gaur Mandal Parikrama, thousands and thousands of pilgrims assembled at our Champahati Mandira. There was a whole village of tents in all directions. On the afternoon of the last day, one of our godbrothers had just arrived in Navadvipa, having returned from London by boat. He had gone to preach, but had returned without meeting with full success. In the evening, while Guru Maharaj was giving pravachana, he explained that it was his earnest desire that the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should be spread in the western countries. He told how it was a vision of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakura that this would happen, and it was also the last request of his mother, Srimati Bhagavati Devi, to him before she left this world. Consequently, he had been willing to take the lifeblood of Gaudiya Math in funds to send devotees there to preach. But so far, these attempts had been largely unsuccessful. At this moment in his talk, I noticed that something very mysterious was happening. Guru Maharaj was looking out at the large crowd of devotees, especially in the front where all the sannyasis and brahmacharis in red cloth were. Then he turned his head and looked over to his left side where I was standing. He was looking intently at someone and became silent for a long moment. I happened to look behind me and I clearly saw that the person with whom he was making eye contact was Abhaya Charana-Aravinda Prabhu. I thought that they were looking at each other in a special way. Then Guru Maharaj again addressed the audience in front of him and said, "But I have a prediction. How long in the future it may be? I predict that one of my disciples will cross the ocean and that devotee will bring back the whole world." Srila Prabhupada ki. I remembered this incident, and Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj truly made it come to pass exactly in this way. Next, Srila Prabhupada, a humble Grahastha Vaishnava. Srila Nayanananda Dasa Babaji Maharaj recollects, Abhay Prabhu behaved very humbly to everyone, even though he was senior in many years to most of the people who came later during those 11 years. He would always pay dandavat to others just because they had taken initiation first. Though he had made that devoted connection with our Guru Deva first, he didn't formally take initiation until later on because of his family and business. I clearly recall how very serious, simple and humble he was. Sometimes when I was in Calcutta, I would go to visit him at Sitakanta Banerjee Lane, where he had his home and chemical business. Sat Prasangananda Brahmachari who is 93 years old now, and Satisha Prabhu, who is 73, used to accompany me when I visited his house in Sitakanta Banerjee Lane. He was very affectionate to us. He always welcomed guests into his house, into his home. He opened his house to any Vaishnavas from the Gaudiya Math, whether they were his godbrothers or young brahmacharis who weren't godbrothers and hadn't even been initiated. Srila Prabhupada quits home to be a vanaprastha. This is excerpt from Transcendental Diary by Hari Shauri Dasa. Hari Shauri Dasa writes, "You know my story, tea or me?" Srila Prabhupada asked me. "No, Srila Prabhupada," I said, intrigued and eager to hear. He gave a chuckle. "My wife, she was fond of drinking tea. So one day I told her, either you give up your tea drinking or you give up your husband." "Oh, then I will give up my husband." Of course, she thought I was joking. He went on, "But a few days later, I left the house without telling anyone. I borrowed 10 rupees from a friend, brought a train ticket, and I never returned." "Where did you go?" "Somewhere, anywhere." He laughed. He never saw his wife again. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur urges Srila Prabhupada to take sannyasa. Excerpt from Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita Volume 1 by Satsvarupa Dasa. One night, Abhay had a striking dream. The dream he had several times before during his days as a householder. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati appeared just as Abhay had known him, the tall, scholarly sannyasi coming directly from the spiritual world, from Krishna's personal entourage. He called to Abhay and indicated that he should follow. Repeatedly he called and motioned. He was asking Abhay to take sannyas. "Come," he urged, "become a sannyasi." Abhay awoke in a state of wonder. He thought of this instruction as another feature of the original instruction Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had given him at their first meeting in Calcutta. The same instruction that his spiritual master had later solidified in a letter. Become an English preacher and spread Krishna consciousness throughout the Western world. Sannyasa was for that end. Otherwise, why would his spiritual master have asked him to accept it? Abhay reasoned that his spiritual master was saying, "Now take sannyas and you will actually be able to accomplish this mission. Formerly, the time was not right." Abhay deliberated cautiously. By accepting sannyas, a Vaishnava dedicates his body, mind and words totally to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, renouncing all other engagements. He was doing that already. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had offered sannyasa to his leading disciples so that they could continue his mission. They hadn't done it. Preaching in the West had proved perilous even for the Gaudiya Math's most recognized sannyasis. How could he, a mere householder, presume he could succeed where others had failed? He was hesitant. The helpless, incapable feeling he had expressed in his Viraha Ashtaka was there, but now his spiritual master was beckoning him over all other consideration, even over natural humility. Now, although he was elderly and alone, the desire to preach, just as his spiritual master had preached, remained within him, a fierce, though sometimes quietly expressed determination. The Vedic standard and the example set by the previous acharyas was that if one wanted to lead a preaching movement, sannyasa was required. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had taken sannyasa to facilitate his missionary work. Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyasa to further the Sankirtana movement. Of course, Lord Chaitanya was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but when his young students had been disrespectful towards him, treating him as an ordinary man, he had taken sannyasa. But a sannyasi is automatically respected. Because the sannyasi is automatically respected, Lord Chaitanya's acceptance of sannyasa was a calculated tactic. As soon as he began traveling throughout India as a sannyasi, he immediately attracted thousands of followers to the Sankirtana movement. Abhay turned to Keshav Maharaj in Mathura, and Keshav Maharaj told Abhay to take sannyas immediately. After corresponding with Tirtha Maharaj, Abhay had felt some uncertainty about accepting sannyasa, and now that he was being encouraged so strongly, he resisted. But Keshav Maharaj was insistent. Srila Prabhupada said, I was sitting alone in Vrindavan writing. My god brother insisted to me, Bhakti Vedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he insisted. Not he insisted. Practically my spiritual master insisted. He wanted me to become a preacher, so he forced me through his god brother, you accept. So unwillingly I accepted. October 21st, 1968, on the occasion of the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada's Sannyas Guru, Bhakti Prajna Keshava Maharaj Srila Prabhupada recalls in ISKCON, Seattle. Srila Prabhupada. One has to accept the renounced order of life from another person who is in renounced order. So I never thought that I shall accept this renounced order of life. In my family life, when I was in the midst of my wife and children, sometimes I was dreaming my spiritual master that he is calling me and I was following him. When my dream was over, I was thinking, I was little horrified. Oh, Guru Maharaj wants me to become sannyasi. How can I accept sannyasa? At that time I was feeling not very satisfaction that I have to give up my family and I have to become a mendicant. At that time it was a horrible feeling. Sometimes I was thinking, no, I cannot take sannyasa. But again I saw the same dream. So in this way I was fortunate. My Guru Maharaj, Prabhupada begins to cry, choked voice, pulled me out from this material life. I have not lost anything. He was so kind upon me. I have gained. I left 3 children. I have got now 3,000 children, 300 children. So I am not the loser. This is material conception. We think that we shall be loser by accepting Krishna. Nobody is loser. I say from my practical experience. I was thinking that how can I accept the renounced order of life? I cannot accept so much trouble. So, but I retired from my family life. I was sitting alone in Vrindavan writing books. So this my god brother, he insisted me, Bhakti Vedanta Prabhu. This title was given in my family life. It was offered to me by the Vaishnava society. So he insisted me. Not he insisted me. Practically my spiritual master insisted me through him that you accept. Because without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he wanted me to become a preacher. So he forced me through this god brother. You accept. So unwillingly I accepted. And then I remembered that he wanted me to go to the Western country. So I am feeling now very much obliged to this god brother that he carried out the wish of my spiritual master and enforced me to accept this sannyasa order. Srila Prabhupada accepts sannyasa, Lila Amrita, Volume 1, Satswarup Dasa. Keshavji Gaudiya Mutt was located in the midst of one of Mathura's downtown bazaars. Its main entrance, an arched doorway, led into a courtyard open to the sky through a metal grating above. Abhay Babu entered the matha dressed in white, but he would soon be living dressed in saffron as Swami. Abhay had been living as a renunciate for 9 years. There was no need for him to observe a ceremony or to proclaim himself a sadhu by changing to saffron dress. But it was the parampara system that the man take Tridandi sannyasa at the end of his life. He was aware of the cheating sannyasis. Even in Vrindavan, he had seen so-called sadhus who did not preach but simply spent their days hunting for chapatis. Some swamis of Vrindavan even indulged illicitly in what they had supposedly come here to reject, sex life. Such persons were making a mockery of sannyasa. And there were caste Goswamis also who lived like ordinary householders, running temples as a business to support their families and accepting honor and donations from the public on the false basis of birth. Abhay knew of these abuses of sannyasa, but he also knew the real purpose of sannyasa. Sannyasa was for preaching. On the morning of September 17, 1959, in the 50 by 25-foot DT room on the second floor of Keshavji Mat, a group of devotees sat before the deities of Radha Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. The deities were colorfully dressed in royal clothing and silver crowns. Abhay sat on the mat of kusha grass beside 90-year-old Sanatana, also to receive sannyas that day. Sitting opposite the two candidates, Narayan Maharaj, Keshav Maharaj's disciple, prepared to conduct the ceremony of mantras and offerings of grains and geese into the fire. Akinchana Krishna Dasa Babaji, Abhay's godbrother, known for his sweet singing, played mridanga and sang Vaishnava bhajans. Sitting on a raised asana, His Holiness Keshav Maharaj presided. Narayana Maharaj chanted the required mantras and then sat back silently while Keshav Maharaj lectured. Then, to everyone's surprise, Keshav Maharaj asked Abhay to speak. Abhay had not expected this. As he looked around at the gathering of devotees, he understood that the common language was Hindi. Only Keshav Maharaj and a few others spoke English. Yet he knew he must speak in English. After Abhay's speech, each initiate received his sannyasa danda, the traditional head-high staff, made of 4 bamboo rods bound together and completely wrapped in saffron cloth. They were given their sannyasa garments, 1 piece of saffron cloth for a dhoti, 1 for a top piece, 2 strips for underwear. They also received tulsi neck beads and sannyasa mantra. Keshav Maharaj said that Abhay would now be known as Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, and that Sanatana would be known as Muni Maharaj. After the ceremony, the 2 new sannyasis posed for a photo, standing on either side of their sannyas guru, who sat in a chair. I think we have seen this black and white picture. Keshav Maharaj didn't impose any strictures on Abhay. He simply encouraged him to go on preaching. Yet Abhay knew that to become A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami did not mean merely that he was giving up family, home comforts and business that he had done 5 years ago. Changing from white cloth to saffron cloth, from Abhay Babu to Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, had a special significance. It was a mandate he had required, the irrevocable commitment. Now it was only a matter of time before Bhaktivedanta Swami would travel to the west as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had ordained. This was Bhaktivedanta Swami's realization of his new sannyasa status. The Gaudiya Patrika's account of sannyasa initiation included a biographical sketch of Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, listing the major events of his life. The article concludes, seeing his enthusiasm and ability to write articles in Hindi, English and Bengali, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati gave him the instruction to take Tridandi sannyasa. For nearly 1 year he had been ready to accept sannyasa. In the month of Bhadra, on the day on which Vishwarupa accepted sannyasa, Bhaktivedanta Swami at the Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Mat accepted sannyas from the founder of Vedanta Samiti, Bhakti Prajna Keshav Maharaj. Seeing him accept his ashrama of renunciation, seeing this pastime for accepting the renounced order of life, we have attained great affection and enthusiasm. One of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, Rupavilasa Dasa, recalls, we were spending a little time with Prabhupada's godbrother Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, whom he had a very affectionate relationship. He was telling us the story of Prabhupada taking sannyas, and he said, the ceremony was going on with Keshav Maharaj overseeing and conducting the initiation. Narayan Maharaj was chanting the mantras and I was doing bhajan. But as is my habit, I got a little bit loud. So Keshav Maharaj was making a gesture with his hand, palm down, as if to say, not so loud. Krishnadas Babaji said, as soon as he would turn his head, your Prabhupada would go like this, turning his palm up, indicating to chant louder. Then Krishnadas Babaji laughed, as he always did, and he said, it was then that I knew he would be the leader of the Hare Krishna movement. Excerpt from Srila Prabhupada at Radha Damodar by Mahanidhi Swami. After Srila Prabhupada taking sannyas, Narayan Maharaj recalls, I would visit Srila Prabhupada many times while he was staying at Radha Damodar temple between 1962 and 1964. One time I went there and he was sitting on the floor on a torn quilt. After sitting down on my chadar, we both discussed Srimad Bhagavatam. There was no bed on Prabhupada's room. He was sleeping on the floor. On another occasion, Narayan Maharaj recalls, often we would have kirtan in his room at Radha Damodar. Prabhupada played mridanga. I played kartals. He used to tell me how he was planning to go to America and other Western countries. He said, I want to preach as Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has ordered me, and I want to publish back to God at a huge scale and preach in Western countries. If there will be need, I will establish boarding facilities for interested people. If they want, I will give meat also, and eggs also, and wine also. I believe that after hearing Harinam Sankirtan and Siksha instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then certainly they will reject all these things, and surely they will become pure Vaishnavas. Srila Prabhupada teaches by example. Excerpt from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 4. In Nairobi, Srila Prabhupada demonstrated how a sannyasi should preach. For 1 month, he strictly followed Vedic tradition by staying only 3 days or less in the home of each of his Indian hosts. And then, although his hosts always provided him good food and comfortable accommodation, he would move on to the next place. This was a rule for sannyasis, Srila Prabhupada said. It kept them from becoming attached to bodily comforts and from inconveniencing their hosts. Srila Prabhupada ki. Randra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Sometimes I was dreaming. My spiritual master, he is calling, and I was falling.
His children were grown and in school or married, and it was time.
He finally accepted the sannyas order.
Baba means father. I am his son, he is my father. And I'm the last child of Prabhupada. Youngest and last. He was a man of personality and dignity. I was stunned and I was shocked at that time when I heard it, that my father is living.
You bless me. Please take care of your mother and your family.
a way of harnessing energies. He's there contemplating what's needed to bring Krishna to the world.
This is very much a part of the Indian culture from ancient times. At the end of life, one will focus on the most important work of life, realizing who I am in relationship with the divine person.
It was an intense period of writing, getting those first 3 books of the Srimad Bhagavatam published.
He was able to synthesize a vast library of Sanskrit wisdom texts down to their essence and transpose that into a language that people of the 20th and 21st centuries can understand.
In this one text, the entire expanse of creation is described.
This book has the potential to lead a revolution in consciousness, which he felt was the need of the hour.
So after publishing 3 parts, then Guru Maharaj gave me indication that now you can start for everything. Up till now nothing has been done. So let me try at least. It is better late than never.
He said that he would like to go to America. I was surprised. I said, Swamiji, don't go there. You are too old to go and it will be too cold for you. I said, are you crazy? The old man, you are going to die. Who will look after you? What will you do then? Still he insisted. So I said, all right. So I made arrangement for him to go by Jaladuta.
So we're talking with Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta.
Hello, Swamiji?
Yes.
What is the perfection of this life?
The perfection of this life is to understand oneself. What I am. This is the beginning. Why I am suffering. If there is any solution of this suffering, so know yourself. Yes. Know yourself. Yes.